Howdy, everybody. Welcome to Track 35, Mr. Inevitable. Welcome in. Welcome, everybody. This is the last episode of Season 1. So it's kind of cool. We ended up on episode 35 to end Season 1. Kind of a cool little number to end on, I guess. But it's been a fun ride, and we've covered a lot of football, covered a lot of off-season stuff, a lot of Dallas Cowboys, shattered the script, and I would say 30 weeks of football. And we are proud to have given you guys a script shattering take every Wednesday. And we will be back in season 2 in March. But we wanted to wrap things up with some Super Bowl recap, talk about some highlights from the Super Bowl outside of the game, cover a little bit of tracking the boys towards the end. Mike Zimmer coming in at defensive coordinator. Jordan Love, was a guest on the Edge with Michael Parsons in Vegas. We had some interesting takes there. And then, of course, our track ranking. Then we have, of course, I'm your host, The Rook, and I'm joined by the medical guy and the analyst. The medalist. That's actually a kind of a cool name. But the anal med is in the house today. So appreciate you guys joining in for the final episode of season 1. Okay. Well, let's go straight into Shatter the Script. And if you are a first-time listener, before we get to that, we want to encourage you guys to hop on into our social media, give it a follow, give it a shout-out, share it with your friends. If you ever hear somebody say the NFL script, say, hey, I got the perfect podcast for you. And you can point the directions right here to Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Music at the TRAK Podcast. You can find our link trees on X or Instagram and TikTok down there on the bottom of the banner. Okay. Shatter the Script. Kyle Shanahan. Okay. We've heard a couple of things about Kyle Shanahan after the Super Bowl concluded. He's 0-3 in the Super Bowl. And it's not to say that he's a bad coach. We want to bring up a statistic here of basically his stats in the Super Bowl as head. 2 of them are from when he was head coach, and the first one is when he was an offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons when they blew that lead 28-3. So I'll present those facts here. If you're watching, you can see this on Spotify or YouTube. But if you're listening, we'll be detailed as possible. Here we go. Kyle Shanahan in his 3 Super Bowl appearances. The first one, offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons, blew a 25-point lead in Super Bowl 51. I wouldn't put that completely on him, but we're just going to read these. He blew a 10-point lead in Super Bowl 54 against the Chiefs, and then blew a 10-point lead in Super Bowl 58 against the Chiefs. And this guy, James Nagel, says it's time to call Shanahan and the 49ers exactly what they are, the biggest choke artists in NFL history. Personally, I'll open up with a statement on this. I think that's a load of crap. I really do. I don't think that Kyle Shanahan is a choke artist. I think if you're going to look at a choke artist, you look at other teams in the NFL that didn't make it as far as Kyle Shanahan, because not a lot of coaches make it to a Super Bowl, let alone it is so hard to get there in the first place. We've heard a lot of analysts talk about, how difficult it is to get to that point in the Super Bowl. But Kyle Shanahan, the last 3 years, has had one of the best rosters and coached teams and schemes in the NFL. And that is not something that is common. So to see him get into the Super Bowl for the 3rd time, 2nd time as his head coach, and both times played the best quarterback in football, and all 3 times he's appeared in the Super Bowl, he's had a different quarterback: Colin Kaepernick, Jimmy G, Brock Purdy. I mean, that's impressive. Sorry, Matt Ryan, not Colin Kaepernick. That was Jim Harbaugh. Matt Ryan. As
major difference there. Major difference.
Major difference in what jersey number they wear. And so it just, to me, I think it's silly. I think it's recency bias. I think it's overreaction, because it's all fun and games until you play Patrick Mahomes in that moment, in that circumstance. And the only person to ever really beat Patrick Mahomes is Tom Brady. And, we'll kind of get into that a little bit more. But, just to shatter the script on this, Kyle Shanahan is an outstanding coach. He has, I would say, the number 1, if not top 3 offensive scheme in the NFL. He has accumulated, along with John Lynch, one of the greatest rosters in the past 3 years. He knows how to utilize his players effectively in a scheme. You think of a guy like Debo, who's a utility guy who really doesn't really identify as a wide receiver as a whole, but they utilize him to get plus 1,000 yards in receiving, plus 500 yards or so in rushing, 10 plus touchdowns. Christian McCaffrey, the best running back all year. Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, coming in here, one of the best statistical quarterbacks of this year, was an MVP candidate for a while. That's not easy to do. That always falls back on coaching, because we blamed a lot of the faults of the Dallas Cowboys back on coaching with the talent that they have on the roster. But yeah, I want to open the panel up to I'll start with the analysts here. Your reactions on Kyle Shanahan, this narrative here. Is there a script to be shattered, or do you agree with what not exactly what this guy's saying, but along the lines of, hey, he could do a better job here against whether it be Patrick Mahomes or somebody else?
Well, I think it's a little bit of an overreaction. I agree with you on that part. I think it's interesting to, these stats do tell a story, and each of these Super Bowls have an underlying issue in all of them. Some decisions were made on Sunday that were maybe questionable, or some things happened in the game that just didn't break the 49ers way, and that's the exact same thing that happened in 54. May I remind you that Jimmy Garoppolo took that shot. I can't remember who the receiver was, but it was just out of reach to put them in a game-winning situation in 54. And then the Falcons one is that one was a huge breakdown on all fronts. But there are some stats up there that might say that he's the biggest choke artist in the NFL history, but it's one of the stats that I always go back to is when he's trailing the fourth. His record's like 1-37.
Yeah.
But the thing is, he's not really ever trailing in the fourth quarter. So while I do think that, those 3 Super Bowls are going to loom over his head as like a coach that's, maybe not able to finish it. But the thing is you got to think about kind of all the points he made. He's got a really great roster, and he's a great coach that puts together game plans that just breaks down the other teams in the NFL that are really good, like the Cowboys, like the Eagles. I mean, you got to think about what they did to the other good teams in the NFL this year. But on top of that, I think the last thing I would add is, you got to think about his coaching tree too, and all the successes that come off of him. You've got Sean McVay, with the Rams. He won a Super Bowl. Matt LaFleur with the Packers. You've got Mike McDaniel with the Dolphins. Bobby Slowick with the Texans. You go look at all the awards this year.
D'Amico Ryans as well.
You go look at all the awards this year and who are their nominees. That episode where me and you were talking about who's all up there. You got people that are thriving in the NFL off of his coaching tree. So would he be the biggest choke artist in the NFL? No. There's definitely, our team for one is one that you could put up there, or you could say Lamar Jackson too, or maybe even Josh Allen. But their coaches could be on the chopping block as well. But I think it's a little bit. I could see the argument, but I think it's a little bit out of reach.
Yeah. Okay. And the medical guy.
Yeah, I think this has been an egregious overreaction right here, saying the biggest choke artist in NFL history. And the reason why is when you think of someone choking in a game is they don't show up, or they make terrible decisions, or there's just something just odd happens that causes a big swing in the game and whatnot. And if you look at every Super Bowl appearance, and even last year, when both his quarterbacks got hurt, he easily could have been back-to-back in the Super Bowls, right?
Yeah.
And excuse me. And so that's where I don't think it's more choke artist. It's just he got beat by some of the best quarterbacks and some of the best teams and head coaches to play. And to me, if we compare it to the Dallas Cowboys, when saying choke artist, it's Mike McCarthy, Dan Quinn, the coaching, the scheme, the play calling. We went away from what worked, or we did something that was odd that wasn't putting us in the best situation. If you look at the stats here, we've argued back and forth about who the best player or who the number one driver is in this offense and whatnot, or even that defense. And, we go with Christian McCaffrey. Well, it wasn't from a lack of him getting the ball or getting targets. We go with Brandon Ayuk. Yeah, he didn't have the best game, but they were throwing the ball to him. Same with Debo. I mean, they tried to get the ball to him. The only stat you could look at where it's like, well, what's up there is like George Kittle. Like, why was he not getting more? But we saw that he was dinged up. And so, I wouldn't necessarily call it a choke job, because in the last few Super Bowls he's been in, especially the last two, he's had the injuries. And I know we were talking about it before the pod, like even in this game, like losing someone like Dre Greenlaw, I mean, that's a huge swing. And we've talked about how great that linebacker core is, and to lose someone that's that pivotal in that big of a game at defense. And I mean, we saw it multiple times. Like as soon as that the backup linebacker came in, I mean, immediately he was targeted. And so to me, a choke job would be like failing and doing something completely odd, or changing your coaching scheme, or going away from what you're good at, or just doing something different because, it got into crunch time. And I just don't think he does that here. And so to say that's one of the biggest choke artists, I mean, and I don't want to say at least he's making it, but like they essentially have a step below a dynasty right now. I mean, in the last 6 years, they've been a top team. They've made it to there, or they've been a step below. So to me, I just think that's kind of absurd to say. But of course, he's probably doing it for clicks. So,
that's the point.
To me, that's just crazy.
One of the things that I think you can add to that is like, if you want to say in NFL history, I was just talking about today, but NFL history, let's not forget the 90s when the Bills went to 4 Super Bowls and lost all 4.
Yeah, so, I literally have that pulled up right now. 90, 91, 92, 93, all made Super Bowls, all lost. And the worst one, I think, was to the Giants. They lost 21-20 or 20-19 or something. So that to me that's tough.
Yeah. That's a brutal go at it for sure. I mean, and to your point, the guy that filled in for Dre Greenlaw, I think they targeted him 9 times in pass coverage and 9 catches were committed or whatever. I mean, it's just, I mean, they're like, he's the problem. So you can't blame it on one guy, but I mean, Dre Greenlaw, if that dude comes out the game, you're attacking that all game long. And credit to the Chiefs coaching staff for noticing that unfortunate injury, and then exploiting it as a weakness offensively, and really catching their fire in the second half. But okay. So that's kind of our side of the script on Kyle Shanahan, and we'll get more into depth a little bit in the Super Bowl as well when we start talking about that. When we want to move into the DB list, and that's presented by the medical guy, and none other than probably Dre Greenlaw is on that list of injuries to diagnose here. But we're all curious to know the DB list. Who makes the list?
Yeah, so I'm going to mention a couple because I know there's a few written down, and I'll kind of let y'all talk about y'all's possible DB list candidates as well. But my first one is going to be, and I know we all saw the video of Jackson Mahomes getting denied by Brittany Mahomes in the club or whatnot. And then like she looks over, kind of shoulder shrugs, and then just starts dancing. And I'm like, man, it's a tough look for a family member.
Definitely.
Especially like it wasn't like they were outside the club or anything. It was like Jackson Mahomes, bodyguard, Brittany Mahomes. And she was like, nah, get out, and just kept going on her way. So that's a pretty bad look, especially that's literally her brother-in-law and whatnot. So that's tough. And then obviously my second one is going to be Dre Greenlaw. Obviously not for making fun of him, but that's just a tough injury, and it was very just strange how it happened. I mean, the dude's fired up, getting ready to go on defense or whatever, and I mean does something that's not even, I don't want to say it's unathletic, but it's not like a football move or anything. He's just kind of popping up on his feet and hitting a jog out there, and then boom, snap, pop, and he's out. And the tough thing about that is like it'll be interesting to see, how he recovers coming in the next year and whatnot. But here's the video, and I mean, you could just, I mean, we've gone on before, but it's like nothing crazy. I mean, he does that every play essentially that he's on defense, with probably even more intensity. And for that to happen, that's just a tough look for the guy. Also, if you want to throw on the DB list, whoever the medical cart or sponsored the medical cart for Dre Greenlaw, probably need to get a bigger med cart. You're getting around all these huge individuals, and it was so small that Dre Greenlaw just hopped in the front seat with him rather than riding on the back of the cart and whatnot. So
yeah,
that's just a tough look for him.
That's sad, man. I mean,
I know.
Imagine working your entire life and you're getting pumped and ready to go. Like, because at the beginning of the game, they were balling. Like the defense for the Niners was balling, and you're getting ready to go out there, and like he's right there next to his bro, Fred Warner. Like that's the guy I played next to. There's a connection there, and you pop your leg. Like I felt really bad for him.
Yeah.
So that sucks.
Yeah, absolutely.
That wraps up the couple people I had on mine. I know, Jared, you had Debo written down, and I know Ryan and I talked about one prior to getting on the pod. So I'll let y'all take it away with y'all's own DB list.
Yeah. The Debo one was more like it was more of the injury because I saw you had that non-contact one, and that was brutal. But my DB list candidate is actually it's one that I kind of thought of on the spot, and it was Ice Spice. So I don't know if y'all saw this, but Jason Kelsey was in the booth with Taylor Swift and Ice Spice and goes up and gives Taylor Swift a big hug and looks to Ice Spice and they're like, yeah, this is her. And he's just like, puts his hand out and gives her like a handshake. Like, yeah. And Twitter did its best.
Oh my God. Yeah. Those are so funny.
Yeah, so I've heard your song about the Graw. Is that what it's called or whatever? And just like, making all these jokes about who Ice Spice was and we'll get because I want to get into more in the track ranking about Twitter because when I say, and Ryan was watching it with me, the analyst, and I was just like laughing in my chair because I was just scrolling through X and I'm like, this is hilarious. I mean, the amount of the different types of tweets that we saw from start to finish, just about Cowboys Twitter too, how the Chiefs were doing ritualistic activities during halftime, like that. Twitter or X was hilarious during the Super Bowl. So shout out to all the those guys out there that were posting during the Super Bowl. That was hilarious. So yeah, Ice Spice is on my DB list because she met the greatest center of all time and was just like, the guy that has no idea who you are or cares, and he's pissed drunk, falling onto palm trees.
Yeah, I guess you could throw like Jason Kelsey's liver on the DB list because all the videos that have come out, like that dude, it's like like us on our bachelor party trips. Like there's no hour or minute that you don't have a drink in your hand, kind of thing. Yeah. And it was like that for like 3 days. I have a buddy that worked for Skycam, and he got to work the Super Bowl, obviously, and would like sending us pictures and whatnot. And it was like 6 hours before the game, and Jason Kelsey was in that box, like beer in hand. And I was like, oh my God, this guy's a tank, dude.
Yeah, I can't imagine. There's always like the box where they show them whatever box they're looking at. And there's like a couple beers up there, like a random like wine drink if there's like women in there. I would love to see like the fourth quarter in front of Jason Kelsey. And I know all my lineman friends used to do it. I would have loved to see his beer garden, how many like empty beers he would have had sitting there.
They wouldn't be serving him
25. He's just
just the whole. They just bring him a whole like 30 rack and be like, "Oh, Mr. Kelsey, here's yours."
Just sitting there at halftime, like, why the hell is Prince performing at halftime? Or who the hell is Michael Jackson?
Because if they had those stadium guys, the I hope it, and they got one of those. Yeah, still on some beer. They just put one in front of Kelsey.
The whole tray.
But for me, my DB list that I had on there was Kyle Shanahan for what we talked about earlier. That really sucks to be him. Yeah. But the other one was Debo, but for another reason that Jared named was like Debo got all the heat from like all the Eagles. I don't know if you saw what Fletcher Cox said. He
Oh,
went
yeah.
after Debo. Debo was like, I've been holding this in. You a joke. Like you got your ass smacked. All that. So I thought that was funny. But the other on the DB list that I had was her playing the guitar.
Yeah,
We were talking about HER. Clearly not playing the guitar, and everybody's like, "Look at her, she's shredding." And then there's like Jared said it. Everybody on X was like, "Dog, she is not playing that guitar. She is not doing that.
Not fooling anybody."
So, and then I think the last one I had was Usher, and clearly he was wanting to take Alicia Keys to the back room. Dude was down bad, and whoever Alicia Keys' wife or husband is, he was sitting at home like, he was shaking. For sure. He was sweating bullets. He's like, "Please come home. What's your flight?"
Yeah.
So,
Sorry, I fell asleep. My phone died. It's like, oh no.
Yeah. Clearly something was going on there. But
you up?
Usher was trying to rizz up Alicia Keys on stage, and it was definitely evident. So
right.
That's really all I had on the DB list for my end.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's the DB list. So we'll transition into the stat analysis presented by the analyst. And you had a couple of cool stats we were talking about off air that we wanted to bring onto the show. And you have them, according to sources.
You made them.
And you made them. Yeah. This is all you.
Right.
That's all.
Sorry, I was trying to pull it up. I thought you were still making jokes. So I just have a couple interesting stats that I saw on Twitter, and I thought it'd be cool to share. I've got one of the ones that I think that I'd like to share first is the Niners had 3 opportunities to grab control of that game in the third quarter, starting with the Mahomes pick at the very beginning. To me, that's Jared can attest to this. When that happened, I was like, this is their opportunity to punch Mahomes in the mouth. Like, he doesn't make a lot of mistakes, and he just threw that ball up into oblivion, and they got picked off, and the Niners had it up to 40. They came out with 0 points. And then the next one was, it was the Mahomes pick, the punt way down in their end zone, and then they got the same exact scenario where they got Mahomes backed up. They had to punt the ball, and they were basically in plus territory all 3 times. And those 3 times, 3 straight 3-and-outs, gained -2 yards in those 3 combined possessions. So they wasted 3 drives up by 10 where they couldn't make anything happen. And I think that's a testament to my next stat. So I was telling Jared earlier that I saw another stat that all year, anybody that played the Niners, and we can attest to this as Cowboy fans, is like, all year, everybody that played the Niners played cover 2, cover 3, zone coverages where there was like not even hybrid zones, but just zone coverages because nobody wanted to man down against Ayuk, Debo, Kittle, all the stars they have. Well, in the Super Bowl, the Chiefs played 25% of the time, or 22% of the time they played cover 0, and 24% of the time they played cover 1. Both of those obviously cover 0. There's nobody over the top. It's man down. Cover 1, you have one guy that's playing free over the top, usually a safety. So that tells you 2 things. 1, they were not afraid to try and make Brock Purdy win that game. And 2, they blitzed a ton. And that's Spags' whole defense. And it was very evident later in the game that, Brock Purdy couldn't get a ball off. Brock Purdy was struggling. He kind of became one-dimensional, and it just really put an end to anything the Niners were trying to do, which Jacob made this point during the game. We were kind of talking about it. It's like, it was very weird play calling, late in the game, because in the first half, the Niners should have been, they were running the ball with McCaffrey, and it was big runs, 5-6 yard gains, 7-yard gains, where it's putting the Niners in great territory to, make a play action pass, whatever. That all stopped in the second half. There was just nothing going on for the Niners. So here's another stat I have and this goes into these stats just keep rolling into each other. So Mahomes in 18 career playoff postseason games, 41 touchdowns and 8 interceptions.
Jeez.
So if you look at it that's basically a full NFL season. That's an MVP worthy season in the playoffs against the best teams in the NFL.
By far.
So,
Yeah.
that's crazy. So that leads into what everybody's talking about now, the GOAT talk. And I think this is very interesting. So, this is Patrick Mahomes versus Tom Brady. And I'm going to skip over most of these that everybody's talking about right now. MVPs, Mahomes has got 2, Brady's got 0. This is their first 6 years of their NFL career. So obviously Brady won some MVPs. He has all the Super Bowls, but this is just Tom Brady's first 6 and Mahomes' first 6.
Okay.
So Mahomes has 2 MVPs to Brady's 0, 3 Super Bowls for both. MVPs, Super Bowl MVPs. Mahomes 3, Brady 2. 4 appearances in the Super Bowl for Mahomes, 3 for Brady. Playoff appearances. Mahomes has made it every year he's been a starter. Brady had 5. 6 Pro Bowls for Mahomes, 3 Pro Bowls for Brady, 2 first-team All-Pros for Mahomes, 0 for Brady.
Wow.
And then these are the ones that I think matter the most. This is what I was talking about earlier before we started the pod. Like, you can talk about passing yards per attempt, touchdown passes, like completion percentage. Like, to me, that all is kind of circumstantial. And by the way, Mahomes beats Brady in all 3 of those or all of those stats. But these are the ones that make or break to me, like that make a difference. Top 5 in yards, Mahomes 4, Brady 1. Top 5 in touchdowns, Mahomes 4, Brady 3. Top 5 in EPA per play. And this is the new stat that everybody talks about. It's expected point average. So it's like when you make a play, how much does it change the game? And this is huge for Mahomes. 5 for Mahomes in his first 6 years, 2 for Brady. So to me, that just goes back to what I was talking about throughout the entire year. It's like, or what my argument for Brady was a long time ago, was Brady's always had really good defenses and hasn't really had to do a ton in terms of like a lot of his playoffs career. The only one you can really say is 28-3.
Yeah.
But if you go look at Brady's stats in like the playoffs versus Mahomes stats, they're completely different quarterbacks. And this is the first year that Mahomes had a really, really, really good defense. And Mahomes still, like, if you watch that game, and we'll get into the game, but if you watch that game, Mahomes did everything. I mean, he was making
the
plays.
Yeah.
Yes. So I just think those stats are interesting. I know it's a little early to be calling Mahomes a GOAT, but, personally to me, you just watch both of them play. We grew up watching Brady. We're watching Mahomes now. Like, if you told me who to pick, I would 100 times say Mahomes. So
yeah,
in
terms of talent,
yeah.
Well, and a thing to add to that is like, and I think we can all kind of agree on this. Like, when anybody asked who the best quarterback in the league right now, it's Mahomes, right?
Yeah.
Talent wise, winning wise, whatever. With Brady, you always have Manning, Rodgers, like all of them were better talent wise. And I think you said this before about Aaron Rodgers. Like, he's one of the most gifted quarterbacks, where right now Mahomes is both. Mahomes is like best winning quarterback, best clutch quarterback, and has, every bit of talent in the world. And I think that's where it's starting to make that conversation even closer than what it already is.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And that's a great stat presentation there, because it tells you like the potential for greatness for Patrick Mahomes, and that you're watching a dynasty. And this is a team that's young too. I mean, it's not a team that's like, we're full of veterans. And I get that their most essential piece on offense is, Travis Kelce, who's getting up there in age. But we've seen Mahomes do it with a whole lot less. We've seen Mahomes do it with a lot. We've seen, the only thing we haven't seen is Mahomes do it without Andy Reid, which I'm not sure if that was, that's the only, if you really want to separate the two in terms of whenever Andy Reid departs, because, Brady left Belichick and Belichick wasn't the same and won a Super Bowl at, 40 something years old for the Tampa Bay Bucks in his first year there or whatever. And that was kind of the holy shit, like, man, all those doubters are kind of proven wrong sort of deal.
Yeah,
But, we've also seen Andy Reid without Mahomes. And Andy Reid's teams were stellar. They were good teams. So I think you can make the argument. It would be a fun thing to talk about in the offseason, and an argument between Andy Reid and Bill Belichick. Because that's
another
that's a fun argument. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's an eye opener there. And it's something where it's like, and there's a lot of context in between there as well, like in terms of that it is a passing league now more than it is a pro style league. And it's just, I guess, I'm not picking an opinion when I'm saying that. I'm just saying, we keep our eyes open for that, where it's like, okay, well, the game was a lot different back then than it was today. And the talent level today might be, I wouldn't say it's more impressive, but it's just a different game. So much more higher scoring, but Mahomes, you can just clear it. Like medical guy said, he's the best of both worlds. He's the most talented, and he's the most successful. So, the last point I'll make is, and the kid and I were talking about this today, is if you go back to I believe it's our first episode that we ever made of the Rook and the Kid podcast, we had a clip that we made where we talked about Patrick Mahomes being the greatest, quarterback in the league, and said to argue with your closet door. Or or whatever, and it was one of our first clips we ever did. So going back to last year around this time, we talked about this exclusively, and now we're here, hindsight's 2020, and nothing's changed. So shout out to the Rook and the Kid for, I guess, hammering that down before it was, I guess, certified today. So well, let's get into some highlights from the Super Bowl in Las Vegas. Unless the analyst, do you have like a final comment there? I know you might wanted to say something, but
no, I was just going to say the other thing that makes that Andy Reid Bill Belichick argument kind of cool is that I've seen a stat too where it's like people taking 3-year spans of, because this was the conversation with the Bills this past year. It's like, what other teams in a 3-year span have been so successful but haven't seen the Super Bowl? One of those teams is the late and great Bills. They're one of the best teams in a 3-year span, like statistically in a lot of areas, that haven't made a Super Bowl. One of the ones that was lower on that list is the Cowboys now, the last 3 years. The other one that's intriguingly on that list in the last couple of years, the Philadelphia Eagles that were coached by Andy Reid in the late 2000s, early 2010s, I think, with McNabb, Deshaun Jackson, Michael Vick era, where they were one of the best teams. They just didn't make the Super Bowl. So I think that's pretty interesting to say. Like, you could say that Andy Reid has had success elsewhere without Mahomes, to say like, he's a great coach. I mean, who wouldn't take him tomorrow? So that's really
yeah. All right, so some highlights from the Super Bowl in Vegas. There was a couple of, I guess, TV spots. There was a couple events, and I know there was a lot out there. And I was going to pick, one and kind of talk about it, what I thought was the most entertaining from an entertainment standpoint. And then you guys, I kind of have a list on there on our outline, and just kind of what you thought was one of the best highlights from the Super Bowl. Honestly, if I had to choose, I don't know why this one caught my attention, because I've kind of checked out of this part of entertainment, and that's the Marvel universe. And so I for the longest time after Endgame, I've just been grilling Marvel for all the failures that they've basically come out with, and whether it be TV shows, movies, all of it, horrible reviews from they just got grilled. And they come out with the Deadpool Wolverine trailer, and I was like watching this, like, I'm curious because they're going to come out with this trailer, and I know they're bringing Wolverine back, and Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds could be a really cool combo. I watched the trailer, and they got the TVA involved from the Loki series, which I thought that was kind of neat, and to have a way for him to access, the MCU. But anyway, the part in the trailer that I thought was hilarious, that took it away, and it was a perfect way of I guess scripting it, is when Ryan Reynolds says, I'm the Messiah. I'm Marvel Jesus. You know, I'm here to basically save the day. I'm like, you know, honestly, if there's anybody that can do it, it's a guy like Deadpool, who no one's had a single complaint about in his movies. And you know, to pair him with a guy like Hugh Jackman in the comic style suit is super banger. So I personally, I probably will be buying a ticket to go watch that movie in theaters. Even though I really don't go for theaters anymore. And this one actually caught my attention. I was like, okay, let's see. It's probably going to be, I mean, I've been hype about something else before, you know, in Marvel Universe. And it's like, oh, that's like Doctor Strange movie. I was like, okay, this could be legit. I watched it. Maybe I said, all right, I'm done. Like, I'm done with this crap. But just to go watch it for an entertainment standpoint, I'm not really going to keep track with Marvel. But that was a badass trailer. It's a badass scheme, it looks like. And Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman look like they're going to be a pretty good pair. So anything from the medical guy, any highlights that you saw, you know, if it was the same one or?
Yeah, well, I don't want to get into too many of the media side of it because some of those are on my track ranking. But I will talk a little bit on like what you're saying about Marvel and this. I think this is the right move. But I agree with you. Like, you know, when Avengers and all that were coming out, like we were all big into that. And then after that, when they went to that phase 4 or 5 or whatever, and that's my point, is it was just too much shit. Like you couldn't keep up with it. Like, you know, the Loki one was good, but like you had time to watch it. But then it was like 4 or 5 other different like spinoffs or whatever came out at the same time. And it's like, hey, you got to watch this one to be up with it. And it's like, dude, like, please, like, just give me a second to breathe, man. Like, and so that's where I've kind of fallen off on Marvel. It's just like, I don't have the time to watch, you know, 5 different series about random shit. Like, just make some like obviously everybody likes Loki. Like that was a pivotal character in all the Thors and all the Avengers and whatnot. And no offense to like, I think the other good one I watched was it Moon Knight or something like that?
Yeah.
That one I thought was good, but then some of the other ones I'm like, dude, this is just like,
I thought the one about I forget the name of it, but the one about the Scarlet Witch. And that one was bad. I agree with both y'all. I thought Loki was pretty cool. Like everybody loved Loki's character. He's always kind of been an underwritten, like you're saying, an underwritten character in all of the Marvel movies. And they kind of gave him his flowers in like the later Avenger movies where he became kind of Thor's right hand guy. But like all the stuff past that, like I just could not do. The what's his name?
Yeah, I mean,
I just lost his name. Doctor Strange movie was horrible.
So
you know, like I don't care about Miss Marvel. I'm sorry, I'm not going to watch her spinoff. The one that they
the new one,
with,
hell no.
The one where that came out right before all of the Avengers ones, just so that she could be in the Avengers, was trash. I think part of what played a big part in that too is like all of her interviews with the like people on there, like Thor, you know, Captain America, all the guys that play them, you know, they're all enjoying the interviews, and she's over there trying to bicker about how she's the strongest Avenger, and like Liam or Chris Hemsworth's just sitting there like, shut up, you know, like, nobody cares. So it was becoming too, in my opinion, it was becoming too woke. Like it was getting way too far. Just way out there. Yeah. You can say what you want. But that was the problem.
I agree.
You're right.
Nobody wants to see that shit. They just want to see Captain America's shield in somebody's mouth, you know?
Yeah, I do agree. I think that I saw that trailer and I was like, okay, I'll go watch that, you know? But anyway.
Yeah. Deadpool is, I thought that we all thought that was a pretty cool trailer, it sounds like. Okay, and then our thoughts on Usher, you know, the Usher halftime show.
Well, hold on, we didn't get to share our medical guy. Didn't get to finish.
Oh, well, I thought he was going to save a couple for the track ranking.
But
okay. Unless you have a different one.
I guess the one good thing about like because I was working technically, so I didn't get to like. I'm like sitting in a dugout watching a softball game with like the phone propped up like on like no sound. So a lot of that bullshit I didn't have to hear. And and so that was nice. But I did get to see like a couple of the commercials that I liked. But some of the other stuff I heard, like there were some commercials. I think it was like was it the Dunkin' one or something?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
everybody
Yeah.
liked. Yeah, everybody liked, and I was just like, what that like it was like an acid trip for me. I was like, what's going on in this
Yeah.
commercial? And so I was
That
like,
one of the better ones, I would say.
yeah, well, when you watch it with no sound, I was like, I don't know what's going on here. So this kind of sucks, man. I'm just like, okay, whatever. Like, so really, I don't have too much to touch on besides that. And then the few I watched, which I'm sure y'all be able to guess them when it gets to it, but the rest of them are on my track ranking.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, I thought since we wear True Brand on this podcast, and we're obviously Dallas Cowboys fans, shout out to Post Malone, for repping the True Brand and the Dallas Cowboys jacket and stuff prior to the game. And he did an outstanding job performing his song that he played out there. And he's got a very underrated voice. And I believe you could, he was doing a great job. He was actually strumming the guitar, in his performance, which I thought was cool. But what I thought was interesting about it was, he's strumming and it sounded, kind of steel guitarish, kind of country. And I know there's rumors out there that, and I get it, he ain't a country artist, that he's going to come out with a country album. I'm pretty sure I heard that somewhere. So
I'd listen to it.
I'd listen to it because, he came out with that YouTube spot a while back about I'm going fishing, or the Brad Paisley cover. I'm gonna miss her, and then Wear the Crown was another one, and he killed both of them, and it was legit. So that'd be cool. I mean, shout out to Post Malone. Wearing the True Brand hat, that's big brand marketing for a fun company, which we rep on this podcast. And we want to eventually talk to about a future collaboration if possible. And he killed it out there. I don't know if y'all saw the clip where Brittany Mahomes told him to take off the jacket for, I think, the after party where he was performing, and he was wearing the Cowboys one, so he took it off for one song and then went right back to the Cowboys jersey. So that was cool. But okay, we'll get into the Usher halftime performance, and obviously this is a big highlight. It's something that we always talk about. It's just the greatest halftime performance of all time. Every year it's the same narrative. Thoughts on the Super Bowl performance at halftime. Usher, that boy was sweating bullets for one. That boy looked like he had he just got out of a sauna. And
he was on that 1990s Dallas Cowboy ibuprofen that they used to take before games for sure.
Yeah.
Like he was on that booger sugar. Let me tell you that. Like he was sweating.
And the quote where he was like, Mama, I made it, look where we're at. And I was like, you better hope you make it through the rest of the performance, brother. You might have made it here. You got to finish.
Heart rate was up.
Yeah. Yes. Alicia Keys, came out of nowhere and he's heart dropped for him. I don't blame him either. But but if y'all were to rate it from 1 to 10, I'll start with the analyst here because I know he might have the most critical of Usher's performance. If you had to rate it from 1 to 10, what would you give it?
I'd give it like a 5. I thought it was entertaining enough, and everybody's
moving around.
My whole point is I don't really feel like he was singing. He was just singing his ad-libs, which is fine, but to me it just wasn't.
He was juggling.
It wasn't eye-popping. I guess one of the ones in recent memory that I actually really enjoyed was the Snoop Dogg, Eminem, 50 Cent. That one was cool. This one I just was okay, cool. Yeah, there's Ludacris. Okay, cool. There's Alicia Keys. And here's Usher taking his shirt off. Cool. All right. Yeah, thanks. Lil Jon was cool. But I wasn't blown away by his halftime performance.
Yeah, Ludacris coming in was cool. I did enjoy that. Ludacris, he did a good job. Somebody said he looked like the guy from Dodgeball, from Ben Stiller's character from Dodgeball, which is pretty damn good. But I don't know if y'all saw this as well. Something happened in between. Some fan in in the performance got launched like 20 feet in the air.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah, dude.
They freaking launched him up in the air, and they're like, "Somebody, please, check and see if this guy's okay. Can we confirm that this guy's all right?" Okay, the medical guy, your 1 out of 10 rating.
Yeah, I'd say it's probably about a 6. Yeah. I enjoyed it just because like he was really popular with growing up. Like a lot of those songs were super popular, going through middle school, high school, and whatnot. And then just the people we brought on, especially Ludacris and Lil Jon, like I feel like that was kind of the right route to go to for like a Super Bowl, right? It's hype, it's rambunctious, it's stuff like that. And so like I feel like, I mean, everybody's knows the iconic like Lil Jon like saying like his voice is just iconic and like gets you going and whatnot. And so I thought it was pretty good. I will agree with Jared, like brother was sweating. But he was also like doing a lot. Like I thought that was impressive. Like he wasn't just sitting there with a microphone. Like there was a lot of choreographing and a lot of like on cue and planning and stuff that he really had to do. And so I thought that was pretty impressive. Yeah, I would have died during that. I know he didn't, but I would have died trying to do it.
Yeah, I would have been on the ground.
Yeah.
Diet Coke.
Yeah, someone give me a Diet Coke can of corn. I'm gonna go a step above. I'm just gonna say it was. I'll probably give it as like a 6.2. I like to give the decimal grades. The 6.2 on that. I thought it was cool that they brought Ludacris in. Alicia Keys did a good job performing when she came in. I would have given it a 10 out of 10 if Justin Bieber arrived.
Of course,
Justin Bieber, if he's there, everything's okay. But 6.2, and it wasn't too bad. I'm glad he survived.
Yes.
So that's not an easy thing to do. Okay. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of the recap of Super Bowl 58. Obviously, the Kansas City Chiefs defeat the San Francisco 49ers in the Super Bowl 25-22 in overtime. And so we'll kind of start from the top here. It honestly was a pretty boring first half. There wasn't a whole lot going on. It was it's like defense is kind of settling into the ball game. Linebackers on the 49ers were flying around all over the place. And I know I'll let the analyst kind of talk about this a little bit too, because I know he wanted to he was shouting out Nick Bosa throughout the game and that he was an elemental role in getting pressure and moving sideline to sideline. So shout out to him for doing all. Was that a bubble? Holy God!
Calm down.
Random bubble that just popped up here. So yeah, I mean, I was just sitting here and I was just like, I just saw it floating. I thought it was the fairy from Shrek 2. I was like, oh.
Fairy godmother.
Fairy godmother. Far for 5 minutes. But yeah. So anyway, the analysts, your first impression. I know Nick Bosa played really well. The defenses were settling in. Defensive battle in the first half. How did you think it was? I guess instrumental for both offenses to kind of get a rhythm in the second half and kind of get away from those nerves from the first half.
Well, I think it just kind of speaks to how the Chiefs play. I think I was saying it before we got on the podcast. Both offenses made key changes that really played a huge role in this game. For me, it was kind of for the Chiefs in the second half, it was taking the ball out of the hands of like Checo and just kind of letting Mahomes do his thing. And then for the Niners, it was the complete opposite, taking the ball out of the hands of McCaffrey and trying to find offense elsewhere. And I just was kind of shocked because, like you said, the first half was kind of boring. But, I mean, look at it from the facts. The Niners were kind of all over the Chiefs in the first half. They weren't
I would agree.
Mahomes do much. There wasn't much offense at play on both sides. But when the Niners were giving McCaffrey the ball in the first half, there was a lot of offense rolling. So for them, at least, there was ball movement.
The fumble. Despite the fumble.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was really just kind of a testament to how the Niners were, and they pointed out multiple times on the broadcast, but the Niners were Bosa and Chase Young were doing a really good job containing Mahomes, not letting him get out of the pocket, forcing him to make throws, and it was working really good for him. But all that kind of went away in the second half when, Mahomes started breaking free. Mahomes started using his legs, and that was a really big game changer for them. But yeah, I mean, I was kind of blown away by how the Chiefs were able to. I mean, but I guess what I would say is I was blown away by the Chiefs being able to stick around, but they've been doing that throughout the entire playoffs.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned earlier, Mahomes made a nasty interception. The Niners had multiple opportunities to score in situations where they were either in plus territory or had good field positioning, had momentum, whatever. And the Chiefs basically stuck around. And I think that's kind of a testament to their playoff run. You go look at when they played the Ravens, did the same thing. You look at the Bills' offense and the Bills during that game, they did the same thing where they just kind of stuck around and then won it in the end. So, I mean, I think that's kind of the name of the game here is
They were never
the
out
Chiefs,
of the fight.
No,
Yeah.
they just kind of took some shots, stood in there, and then delivered the last shot at the end to seal it. So we can get down into the specifics, but that's my overall summary.
Yeah, I know the medical guy wanted to talk a little bit about Isaiah Pacheco because I know there was a lot of yards, left on the field. So yeah, I'll let you talk about Pacheco and what else you saw in this game.
Yeah, and I said it, and I had basically two comments about the game, about each team's like running back or running attack, and they were complete opposites of the other. I thought, and it plays into what Ryan was saying, is that the Chiefs seemed like they tried to establish the run game so hard, and Isaiah Pacheco was just not having a day. Like there was plenty of, I thought the Chiefs O-line did a great job running, obviously. Now they did what they could against the pass rush, who was on fire for a majority of the game for the 49ers. But like just watching that, like Pacheco was just making bad reads. It seemed like he was running as if they were up by 2 scores rather than down. Like it was just like, get what yards you can. Like, don't make the bounce out. Don't make the right read. Go into a different, like, not reading the scheme well. And it was frustrating because it was there. Like, you could watch it. Like, it was there for him to get, 6, 7 plus yards. And he's in here running into the ass of everybody and getting 2. I mean, I have the stat pulled up, 18 carries for 59 yards. His longest run was for 10 yards. So you take that away, 17 for 49 yards. That's brutal.
Yeah.
And
that's Pollard.
Yeah. And for me, it's just like, why would we not move off of that earlier? Like to Ryan's point, and just get the ball into your best player's hands, who we've talked about, the best player in the league right now, and have him spread the ball around. And when they did that in the second half and let him create plays, the offense opened up. There weren't any 3 and outs. There weren't, Mahomes was still getting rushed, but he was able to move around and really kind of keep those defensive linemen and those rushers in check. And then what I have on the 49ers, and I was pretty blunt when I said it, I was like, yeah, Purdy shouldn't throw many more passes this game. And it was like, they came out and they were like, nah, we're going to try to establish this pass. And it was like, bro, like McCaffrey was doing everything. I mentioned it before the pod. He had 30 touches for 160 yards and a touchdown. Right. And his one touchdown pass, like that was all McCaffrey. Like he had one person blocking for him and then had to make a guy miss and then ran for 21 yards for a TD. And so I just don't know how, like, that's your best player. He's doing well. Your offensive line is blocking very well. And you take the ball out of his hands. And so that to me, I didn't necessarily agree with. And those were two sides on there, the running back position that definitely could have made and did make a big difference for either team. And I just didn't think they were either not using them right or they just weren't playing very well. Pacheco just did not play very well to me. So
yeah, there was a lot left, on the field in terms of yardage, not effort from Pacheco.
Of course.
Yeah. And I, that, but like to compliment what Ryan mentioned earlier about, the coverages that the Chiefs were that we're running against, Brock Purdy is that it forced Brock Purdy to make the throw. And if y'all remember, there was a couple of throws in there, towards, the goal line or 20 plus yards over where he had a guy open and it looked like he wasn't aiming the throw. He was more just chunking it. And that's how you play elite quarterback, is you have to sit there in the pocket and take some pressure and deliver a solid throw downfield. And we saw it on 3 or 4 occasions in this game where Purdy just couldn't hit that throw. And it was man-to-man coverage in those instances. So I thought that was something to shout out there, from the Chiefs defense and Spagnuolo's scheme, is that Brock Purdy, struggled to make the throw that was necessary, and not every quarterback can do it. I understand that. But it was just noticeable. And then the one person I wanted to shout out here, and we talked about him most of the game, and he could have damn near won MVP for the first half. And no one was probably ever going to mention his name on ESPN or CBS or any major news outlet, is Chris Conley on special teams for the San Francisco 49ers. That dude made probably 4 or 5 great plays on special teams. And we were just sitting here going, and a good catch as well, towards the sideline on offense. We're just sitting here like, Chris Conley used to play for the Chiefs and be like a number 2 receiver and, had a contract and all that kind of stuff. And then he's out here playing special teams, balling out like he's, that Patriots, special teams guy. So shout out to him. For the first half, we were like, dude, this guy might win MVP for the amount of plays he's winning for the first half, which was kind of funny. And then of course the last one, and we'll all kind of join together on this one because it was headline news in the Super Bowl, was Kelsey at the beginning of the game bumping into Andy Reid. And, I want to know y'all's thoughts on this, and I have the video. So if you're watching, you can see it. But this is just like complete nonsense to me. It just, when I first initially watched it, and this is it. They're, they get down to the field, they take Kelsey out of the game, and a fumble happens for the Chiefs. And like we said, the 49ers defense was kind of all over the Chiefs in the first half. And then you got, Kelsey saying, my chick upstairs in that booth, you got to get me on that. My chick's here, bro. You can't take this shit away from me. Put me on the damn field. And I have 2 differing opinions on this. And I'll start with the negative one first. Is one, you could have damn near killed the best coach of all time. If you would have knocked Andy Reid off of his feet, there's no guarantee Andy Reid gets back up. And I'm not, I'm joking about that, but that's not somebody you want to see. I've seen old football coaches fall over in my lifetime, and the analysts can attest to that. And you didn't know. We thought we were going to have a death on the high school football field because of it. And it's just like, it's a dangerous atmosphere. He's not that old, but just in that negative regard, it's like, dude, okay, we're all trying to do the same thing here. We're all trying to accomplish the same task. Obviously you're going to be on the field for 96% of the snaps, so calm your tits. The positive aspect of this is you can see that somebody really cares about winning and really wants to be on the field and be a difference maker in this ball game. And he knows the elemental piece that he brings to this offense and that he's a catalyst outside of Mahomes. And we saw that in the second half in the 2-minute drill, especially. And he almost had the exact stat line I predicted. He had 9 receptions for like 91 yards. He had that clutch catch, to get him inside the 10, to give him opportunity to win the game before overtime. So those are the 2 sides of the fence I would say about this. But I'm sure you guys have differing opinions or similar opinions on this. And, the medical guy, I'll start with you on this one and give you a turn about this.
Yeah, it's similar to what you're saying. Like, obviously, heat of the moment, everybody's fired up, Super Bowl, he wants to make a play, we get it. And I view this, and working with sports all the time now, as like, there's a way you go about it, obviously, whether it be coach to player, player to coach, like making contact with your coach or making contact with your player. Like, sometimes you got to chill out. Like, don't chest bump your coach, bro. Like that. Like, that's not a good look, dude. And the same regards go to, like, as a coach, you don't push or you don't grab a player by the face mask like that. Like, yeah, if you're trying to get them to listen or whatever, smacking them real quick or something, but not like it can't be like that, because, yeah, like you said, you push him over, like, Like he falls over and that's a bad look. And so, like you said, like good thing he didn't, but like this is the head coach too. It's not an offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator or someone different. Like this dude's a head coach. He's 70 years old. Like you got to have a little bit of feel about you. And so I don't think it's a very good look. Andy Reid handled it probably as best as he could, because he easily could have, been like, hey, obviously you're not going to sit Travis Kelce. He easily could have been like, hey, dude, like go chill the hell out. Like go sit down for a while. And even at the podium, he was like, I think he handled it very well, as a head coach should be like, hey, dude's fired up. I get it. I know he didn't mean it like that or wouldn't do it again or whatever. And I think he handled that well. And I'm sure you'll hear Travis come out and say something about it as well, because he knows that's not a good look. He goes back and looks at that. He's going to be like, yeah, I definitely shouldn't have done that, because you do knock him over and he hurts himself. That's shitty. So that's kind of my take on it, is like, get fired up. You can get in each other's faces and whatnot, yell at each other. But once you start bumping each other or grabbing each other or anything like that, that's where it's like, hey, guys, calm down. Like, there's time and a place. This ain't it.
Yeah, I would agree. And the analyst?
Yeah, I think two things can be true at the same time. Going back to what we're talking about, you can be, a fiery athlete, but you also kind of have to handle your shit in a team nature. I mean, Jared can attest to this. I was a pretty fiery guy when I played, but that's something that you should never do. You can get in the face of your teammates. You can get in the face of, for my instance, my brothers. But I'm not going to sit there and embarrass myself or anybody else by grabbing a face mask. Now, I've never played in a Super Bowl, and obviously, but like, there's just a certain composure. And I think it's very well known that Travis Kelce and Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes all have a really good relationship. That's why I think it's true at the same time that there is a respect there. And that's the reason that Andy Reid handled it the way he did. But at the same time, I see Travis Kelce's fire to win this game, but just a horrible way to go about bumping your coach and screaming in his face in the first quarter. Now, granted, this was right after Pacheco fumbled and Kelce wasn't on the field, but that's exactly right what y'all are saying. There's just a way better way to handle this. Tensions are high. You have to trust the coach that's gotten you here. You have to trust that the play calling is there. If you're going to voice it, go up there and, I don't even mind screaming at him. Show the fire, and Andy Reid's going to be like, okay, yeah, I'll deal with that. Let's go. But bumping them is just taking it to another extreme of like, dude, seriously.
Yeah.
Because, but that's my take on it. I totally understand the fire. I totally understand the drive. I totally understand wanting to be, hey, I'm the top guy. I need to be on the field when we're in the red zone. We need to score. But I don't understand, bumping into Andy Reid like that. I just feel like that was totally uncalled for.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say about this is, if this, obviously this did happen. If the Chiefs would have lost this game, you would have seen quadruple the headlines about this.
Yeah, there would have been a totally different headline.
It would have been the first question that was asked after the game was, do you think that had effect on the loss? Or do you think that, Kelce was too much of a distraction for the team? They probably would have brought in, Taylor Swift as being a distraction as to why he maybe did what he did. Stupid headline. It would have been major headline news. He would have had to apologize to Michael Strahan on Good Morning America, that sort of thing. But thankfully that they, luckily I would say for Travis Kelce, and, they won the game, and it's not really that much talked about, as it would be in comparison to if they lost. But yeah, all good points there. There's two sides of the aisle and two things can be true, like y'all said. And, to go into more, let's get into I guess the later in the second half. Obviously the blocked extra point was huge for this game. And, they would have gone up 17-13 rather than 16-13, but that it gave the Chiefs opportunity to tie the game and then keep the game to a point where it's like, if you get a field goal, we can get 1-2 and tie it up, rather than in that 2-minute drill, it's 20-16, not 19-16. And the Chiefs have to score inside the 10 there with 5 seconds left in regulation, which is a whole lot different ball game. What would you say?
I have a different take on that. I actually think that was beneficial to the Niners because during that point in the game, while the Chiefs were going down, it changed the way that they thought about the game. So, if it's 17-13, if I'm the Chiefs, I'm like, we got to press for a touchdown here. But if it's 13-16, you're thinking at the same time, okay, well, if we don't get down here, we can still kick a field goal and we'll take this game either into overtime or whatever. But that, to me, that wasn't as detrimental as everybody painted it to be. I see both sides, but for me, like, if I'm the Niners, it wasn't as crucial to losing as most people kind of painted it, because of the reason I just said. If you're the Chiefs and you're driving down, you're like, man, if we don't get, we can be conservative here because we can take this game or extend this game with a good field goal. So that's my take.
I would say I wouldn't phrase it as being detrimental, to go back on what I said. I would say that it just changed the outlook of how to approach the final moments of that game.
I do agree with that.
Yeah, like in that moment, they played it different to get back to 16 and then to 19. And you can play a little bit more conservatively and more, you're like, okay, we're kind of protected here a little bit. But then once you get 20, if it was 20-16 under 2 minutes left, and you've got less than 10 seconds to score on 1st and 10 inside of the 10-yard line after that Kelsey reception, that's a whole different outlook. And that would be the major point I would have on the blocked extra point. But then, to get into like later into the game, I guess we'll go into OT. Obviously, or evidently, I should say, the 49ers players weren't apparently aware that of the new overtime rules. And Fred Warner takes the ball first, and these new overtime rules, it's like, that one, I would say, if you want to classify detrimental, I would say that would classify as detrimental, because the 49ers go down there, score a field goal, but then the Chiefs come back around and they get another possession. They get their possession or whatever to score, and they don't have to worry about time late in the game because they get to finish their possession and stuff like that. So that was big. And it's weird to me. I saw a tweet that was pretty relative. They said, oh, they always call us like Joe Schmoes and that we shouldn't talk about the game because we don't play inside the game. He was like, brother, I was 20 jalapeno poppers deep and I knew exactly what was going on. And I'm like, no doubt. Like, I just had 2 bags of Takis and I know exactly what's happening right now. So we ain't just a casual. We can know the game. And so, I mean, what was y'all's thoughts on the overtime? The medical guy, I can start with you. Overtime, just Purdy's drive, and then Mahomes doing what he does best, being the inevitable. Mr. Irrelevant versus Mr. Inevitable.
Yeah, so agree with you on the point about, like, I don't think the choice to take the ball or receive the ball first or not was that big of a deal. The bigger deal was, like, just players not knowing the overtime rules. I feel like going into the biggest game of the year, like, you've got to go in with a mindset and a preparation that anything that comes up, what's going on. So that I thought was a bad look, but like no one would have cared if like they would have went down and scored a touchdown first drive. My only thing is that, when they got down to it, down in the red zone, like they went to McCaffrey twice and then tried to throw the ball again. And it was 3rd and 4. And I still think like somehow you've got to throw that. You've got to throw that to McCaffrey. Like, I know there was a blown coverage and whatnot. You can say whatever about Chris Jones getting to the quarterback, but I just feel like at that moment you've got to ride or die with like that player. And
that's why you went and grabbed him,
Yeah, because I mean, you give it to McCaffrey, he's more than likely going to get you positive yards, and you go into it with a 4th and 2. well, then that changes things. Or he gets you a first down, that changes things. And so I just didn't agree with that decision right there. Obviously, it's hindsight. And then on the Mahomes side, I mean, the name says it all, just Mr. Inevitable. I mean, and that's where the changes, like we talked about earlier in the second half that you saw with the Chiefs, that second half to overtime, they were saying, if we lose, it's with Mahomes. If we win, it's with Mahomes, whether it be with his arm, whether it be with his legs, whatever. There was no doubt in anybody's mind who the play was going to revolve around. And then another point I thought it was cool. They came out and said the play call for the touchdown. It was Andy Reid's play call. It's called Corn Dog. So I always thought that was pretty funny. And I think he's ran that play like multiple times. And it's called like Corn Dog or something. And so it was pretty cool to like just, you know, you hear all these names like Banana Y Split XY 298. And it's like whatever. And he's like, Corn Dog, right? And it's like, all right, let's go.
You know,
I thought that was funny.
What's cool about it is that's the same play that they used against the Eagles last year, but there's a slight variation to it. So last year with the Eagles, it was 2 guys on the right, and they ran that. This year is 3 guys, and the 2 guys on the right side, Kelsey ran like an over route, and the guy that popped out was Kadarius Toney. This time around, the Niners, you can see, were like kind of ready for that. But instead of doing that, they flashed Kelsey in front of the cornerback. Yeah. So the cornerback had to pick one or two. It was Kelsey and McCole Hardman, and he chose Kelsey, and it took his eyes off of Hardman, and that's why McCole Hardman was like wide open in the end zone. It's that little arrow route that they, you know, a lot of people are starting to run on the goal line now. So I thought that was pretty cool. That's one of the notes I have. It was funny how McCole Hardman was like on the Jets earlier in the year, and then just shows back up on the Chiefs and makes a game-winning catch. So
yeah.
Well, he said in the beginning of the year, he was like, for the Jets, he was like, we're going to play the 49ers in the Super Bowl and beat them. He made that prediction, and it was like, it's kind of weird how it happened, but
yeah,
he knew his script. And then the last key pivotal point, I would say this is the biggest game changer in momentum in the game. And I kind of skipped over it a little bit, was the muffed punt. You know, obviously it bounced off of the 49ers player's foot, which caused the punt returner to have to go after and grab it, which he should have just fell down on the ball instead of picking it up. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. But, you know, it really changed the game because, you know, the 49ers defense had Mahomes on lockdown. And once that happened, it was like next play, MVS touchdown over the middle. And you're like, oh, okay, now we're back in it. You know, Mahomes is cooking now. There's some momentum. Let's go get a stop. They get a stop and let's keep going. And so that's something I couldn't pass over was, you know, the muffed punt. And it's a brutal moment for the 49ers because we all knew, we kind of sat there and was like, that's a game changer. That's a pivotal moment in this game, and it could come back to haunt them, and it did. So I think that, unless you'll have any final comments, I think that covers the Super Bowl. I mean, I think we've touched on every single part of the game that we can. You know, Mahomes is Mahomes, Mr. Inevitable versus Mr. Irrelevant, and the Kansas City Chiefs get another Super Bowl.
The only thing I have to add is I think I saw a stat, like the DVOA stat, that this was like the luckiest game in the history or whatever for the Chiefs or whatnot, just due to all the things that could have gone wrong. I mean, they had 6 fumbles and recovered 5 of them.
Whoa.
And Mahomes threw a pick. So if like you'd have gone into the game and said like, hey, the Chiefs put the ball on the ground 6 times and Mahomes threw a pick and they still managed to win this game, you'd have been like, yeah, you're crazy. So that's the only other thing I had to add is like,
no doubt.
I mean, it was just in the cards for the Chiefs, or the script for the Chiefs. And so I thought that was nuts.
Yeah, absolutely. And the analysts, any final comments?
No, I mean, I think we covered everything. The only thing that I would add is like regarding the OT ruling. I do think me and Jacob, just to add to what Jacob was saying earlier, I don't think that it was detrimental that they took the ball first. But I think my mindset, if you think about the rules, my mindset would have been to play defense first and kind of be like, it's kind of the whole argument for going for two early in the game. It's because like you find out what you need later. I'd rather be driving the field knowing what I need. Like
let's sell out on Mahomes, on defense first. That way he doesn't get the last go at it.
Yeah, but I've also heard the argument was because the Niners defense was probably tired. But I'm like, dude, it's the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like, you have a whole commercial break. You have the coin toss and then the kick. You're telling me you can't get your breath for the Super Bowl with all that? Like, I don't know. But anyway, that's really all I had to have. If it were me and I won that toss, I would have played defense first.
Yeah.
So,
well, they decided to play defense first. So it did not end well for the 49ers. But, yeah, the Chiefs get in there and get another Super Bowl with Andy Reid and their dynasty. So more to come with Patrick Mahomes in 2025 and 6 and 7 and 8. We'll transition into our track ranking. It's the one we've been waiting for a little entertainment aspect of it, but our top 3 Super Bowl 58 moments. Last week you did our top 3 Super Bowl moments all time. This one is specifically for this past Sunday. So the analysts, I'll give you the first go at you. Obviously we always implement, honorable mention. So if you have that, you can start with that and then move into your gold, and we'll move our way up to diamond.
Yeah, I would say my honorable mention is Taylor Swift prancing around with Ice Spice. I did not see that incoming, and I had no idea they were friends.
Or Blake Lively, too.
Yeah.
I didn't know they were
interesting,
friends.
Cool, whatever. My gold ranking is the Greenlaw Achilles tear. I think that played a big – we've already kind of walked up and down that topic enough. So, I think that one played a big role in the game.
Yeah, and the medical guy.
So my honorable mention is kind of basic, but I thought that Usher halftime show, give that a little shout out, just because it was a lot of music from like my childhood and growing up and whatnot. And then my gold was Juwan Jennings TD pass to Chris McCaffrey. I thought that was, I think the prop bet was like, it was a sick moment, but I think that was like Juwan Jennings like first touchdown pass. Betting odds was like 25,000. So it was something nuts that if you'd have put $10 on it, you would have won a lot of money.
Golly. Yeah, that's not. I wonder if anybody did that. Somebody had to have.
I saw a tweet that somebody was like, if he wins MVP, I win like $20,000.
Yeah.
And at the end of the first half, it was really looking like he was going to win the MVP.
Yeah, Juwan Jennings had a hell of a game. Okay, my honorable mention, I don't know if y'all – I think a lot of people missed this, but it was the Kanye West commercial.
Oh, God.
Did y'all see that?
Yeah.
He just basically tuned in live on his iPhone, was like, I'm going to put the website down at the bottom, and that's it. And then just went to the next one. I was like,
$7 million for a phone recorded commercial. It's brutal.
Dude, it was hilarious. I was like, that is so Kanye West. And I'm sure, Taylor Swift was yanking at the chain of that commercial, just like, I hate Kanye. And then my gold was Twitter. X was phenomenal during this Super Bowl. They were talking about Mahomes. One of the best ones I saw, if you've ever seen Spider-Man 3, where Eddie Brock Jr. goes to the church and prays for Tobey Maguire to die, to die. And it was like Patrick Mahomes at halftime praying to Satan. And there was that one. And then there was one was like the Kansas City Chiefs at halftime, and it's like a satanic ritual with like people flying around in like I was just like, what is going on? And the best one that I saw, I think I have it here, was Cowboys Twitter. And so they were acting like the Dallas Cowboys were playing in the Super Bowl during the game.
Oh, yeah.
And so I have a clip here from it. And this one was, I was rolling on my knees laughing at this, quite literally. No, but so it says, you can see the format here. It says, "Can Dak finally get the Cowboys over the hump and win the Super Bowl?" Question mark. Eye emojis. And then it had like the TV icon, Super Bowl LV, 6:30 p.m. ET on CBS, stream on NFL Plus, like the whole format. And then they go in here. It's like 4K graphics, Dak pregame, hyping up the team, like getting ready to go after it in the Super Bowl. And then inside the game was using like CeeDee Lamb touchdown, be like, CeeDee Lamb ties the game up at 7 with a touchdown in the second quarter. Watch now on NFL Plus, streaming now, and all this. I was like, oh my God, what a bunch of idiots. And what a bunch of jabronis. But so that was mine, was X. So, and then back to the analysts.
My platinum was the Niners not capitalizing off of one Mahomes mistake. That was brutal. Mine were all game moments, but that was the one thing that really stuck out to me, or one of the biggest things in the game. It was like, if you're watching, we've already kind of covered it. There's the interception. I was like, dude, if they don't score right here in this game, it's all Mahomes, and that's what it turned out to be. So that's my platinum ranking.
Yeah. Yeah. My platinum ranking and my last two are nothing to do with the game. Platinum ranking, and I think it's a shout out to the Rook as well, because he mentioned it a few pods ago. But the Budweiser commercial, where they had the big Clydesdale, and then they had the white Labrador in the commercial. Did y'all see that one?
Yep.
Yeah.
If not, I got it pulled up. I can play it. But I think the beer commercials, like, those are always like pretty spot on and like pretty good commercials compared to the 17 Temu commercials we had to watch or whatever that shit is. Bro, what is that? What is Temu?
It's a Chinese Amazon. I had no clue what it was.
Okay, yeah. I'll just say I might be old. I know I'm a little older than some of y'all. I had no clue what that was, so I was like watching this pop up, and I'm like, I've never heard of this before.
It's run by China, and so basically they sell all of this stuff like dirt freaking cheap, and it's like the cheapest material you can find. Like, if you go on YouTube, you'll see Temu ads on the top, and it would be like, I don't know, like I guess you use cookies, so like dildo. No, it's fine. But, stuff like that, and it'll be like $1. And
really?
Yeah, I have a coworker that uses Temu to buy a lot of stuff like clothes, and ironically, he is of Asian descent. So like anyway, I thought it was brutal that CJ Stroud was in the Temu advertisement. I don't know if y'all saw that on Twitter, but he is now sponsored by Temu. I thought that was
well, I mean, if they got $60 million to do however many commercials they did, I guess it's not a bad person to be sponsored by. But anyway, back to my platinum. Yeah, the Budweiser old school delivery where the truck shuts down and they somehow find a sled and pull the beer all the way to the bar, and the dog leads them in. Anything kind of with a dog or a puppy in it is kind of going to win my heart over. So I thought that was pretty solid.
Yeah, low key, the Bud Light commercial was pretty good. I'm not gonna
lie. I have a hot take on that.
I bet you it was for you, huh?
Yeah, I have a hot take on that. If they really wanted to win America back over, what they would have done, or what they should have done, to get all the rednecks back on track that used to drink Bud Light, they should have brought the Bud Knight back.
Oh, absolutely.
And they should have had him decapitate Dylan Mulvaney on.
Oh, Jesus, Ryan. That's a pretty.
That would have solved everything for him.
Took a turn,
yeah. Right. That's a pretty.
Chop her head off, twist his dick.
Yeah.
Or is. Oh wait, what? What
does he have?
I don't know. They should have done like a jousting where he beats him, and like it would have been like the Bud back.
That's a pretty flamboyant take, Ryan, for Bud Light, huh?
I can see it now. I can see now a jousting match between the two, and you've got the Bud Knight, and everyone's cheering, going nuts. And then
where's this going?
There's a random knight on the other side, but you can't see its face, and he just brutally jousts it, and guy goes flying or off, reveals the cover from the random knight, and it's the person that screwed up Bud Light, and everybody's like, yeah. But I could. America
You're
would
welcome,
rally around
America.
something like that.
You're welcome, America.
I'm not gonna lie, that was pretty tame of you, Jared. I didn't know where that was going. Ryan and I were
Yeah.
on the edge of our seats where you were going with that. We're like, Ryan's
wait.
next to the pause button, like real quick, just in case.
Yeah. Wait till season 2. We're about to get real active. No.
Yeah.
Okay. My platinum was, and we already covered this a little bit, so I'll just mention it. My platinum was the Deadpool and Wolverine trailer. I thought that was pretty badass. Ryan Reynolds. Not too much else to say about it. We already kind of covered it. So yeah, the Deadpool and Wolverine trailer. And then the analyst, back to you for Diamond.
Yeah, my Diamond my Diamond ranking was The Drive by Patrick Mahomes. I thought that was just like on par for his season.
Straight business.
Yeah, just unbelievable. We already kind of talked about it, but my other Diamond ranking was the Bud Light commercial that I just mentioned. That's what I would have liked to see from Bud Light. I still don't drink Bud Light, never really cared for it. So, yeah.
It's Jared's favorite beer, so.
Yeah, it's Jared's favorite beer.
Oh,
unashamed.
Yeah, whatever, bro.
All right,
but
Diamond.
My Diamond ranking is going to be the return of the Coors Light Silver Bullet commercial.
Put that one on there.
I know they had that. They had that commercial streaming for a while. I think it's been like 20 years, maybe.
Yeah,
it's been a while since that commercial has been aired.
13,
somewhere 10 to 20 years. But to see that return, I'm a big Coors Light fan. That's what's in my fridge. And so, yeah. So to see that back on there and then bring back the Silver Bullet train was kind of nostalgic and whatnot. So
yeah,
to see it before I could drink beer, and now that I can, it's pretty cool.
Now that we know
Coors Light is my go-to for sure.
Now that we know who we all vote for, let's go on to my Diamond.
Jared's like, my Diamond ranking is Trump. It's like,
whoa, he didn't even have an ad. Yeah, my Diamond ranking was Joe Biden's post after the Super Bowl.
Bro, I thought that was so funny. Like everybody was freaking out about it, and I was like, bro, someone stole his phone and he posted that 100%.
He doesn't operate it anyway, but it's like that's if you know that, then it's funny. Like if you know that it's not actually Biden that like posted that, it's funny. Like I thought it was a bot account for the longest time. I was like, there's no way that it's.
I mean, yeah, and the thing is, it's like just imagine like Gramps posting on Twitter. Like it's not happening. He's not posting it. Dude, I thought that was so funny. Like the Homelander eyes and whatnot. Like I laughed so hard at that. I kind of wish it was Joe Biden that did it. Like I would.
You imagine him going through the editing process. He's like, yeah.
Oh God, he might have. That might have been it for him if he tried to edit a picture on Twitter.
Okay, and then I guess my Diamond was actually a part of the game. And it was, I think Ryan had it a little bit, but it was Mahomes' fourth quarter and overtime performance, and just kind of stapling himself as basically the greatest of our generation, or of his era. And it was just like almost like saying, just like I guess to mention what Joe Biden said, just like we wrote it up. And it was a phenomenal last minute drive. It was so Mahomes-esque. It was like, we're going to put the ball in his hands and we're going to win with Mahomes or either lose to Mahomes. And they came out on top once again. And I think a lot of people were watching that and they said to themselves, I'm not shocked. So, So, okay. Those were our track rankings. We got a little, that was fun.
Yeah.
Way to tote the line there, boys. But okay. Tracking the boys. We're just going to cover a little bit of this because we had some new news come out and a little bit of reaction stuff too. But Mike Zimmer, officially the new Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator. Now, I know beforehand around the Super Bowl that Rex Ryan came out with a report himself saying, actually that's not confirmed. And so kind of everybody went into a haze saying, oh God, who's actually the defensive coordinator? Of course, Jerry Jones would do this sort of thing. And of course he would do something like that. And then it came out to be that Mike Zimmer, is the defensive coordinator. So I guess with that being said, the analysts, what do you think of this hire? I mean, what is your, I guess, key breakdown, most important parts of this hire? And we'll get into a lot more of it, in the off season, but we wanted to touch on it a little bit because it's very recent news. But what do you think of Mike Zimmer joining the Dallas Cowboys defensive?
Well, I haven't really looked into all of because this is literally fresh 2 hours ago that it's official.
First
But,
reaction.
I don't. Well, what I mean is I haven't really looked into what he does and what his scheme is. It's been a while since I think he's coached defense in the NFL, at least 2 years. I don't know where he was before. I know he's with I think since Kevin O'Connell replaced him as the head coach for the Vikings, he hasn't been around.
Yeah.
But anyway, long story short, I have hiring Rex Ryan would have been a huge mistake for Dallas.
I agree.
And I think Mike Zimmer was definitely the better option here. What I have seen about Mike Zimmer is that he expects high demands from defense, and I think that's what Dallas needs. I think Dan Quinn was I think a good comparison from what I've seen is Dan Quinn was the backwards hat dad that hands you a beer at 16 when you're over at your friend's house. And then Mike Zimmer's the guy that's your Pee Wee football coach, that's the dad's coach, that's screaming in everybody's faces and is demanding excellence. And I almost think that's what Dallas needs is somebody that's gonna, not treat them all like pretty boys. So I'm excited to see what happens, kind of dig into, what he does for Dallas.
Yeah. Great, the medical guy.
Yeah. I like the hire. Obviously, the Cowboys did what they normally do, and they waited around. And so they kind of just had to go with somebody. However, I think this is, a better hire than what they could have done because we know how they could ultimately screw that up. But kind of what Ryan said is that, I think he's going to bring a different aspect to it, a more disciplined aspect to it, especially on the what's the word, pre-snap penalty stuff. I mean, we saw in that last game how many just offsides, false starts, stuff like that we had. And I think he's going to bring a discipline effect to that, to where we're not going to make as many of those just without playing the game mistakes. And then to point to Ryan's explanation that he had, and Darren Woodson came out, old Cowboys great, came out and said Mike Zimmer's not going to be your friend. He's going to be your coach. And so I think that kind of, adds to that point that he's going to be. Did I cut out there? Because y'all kind of froze a little bit.
Yes. Yeah, you cut out, but it caught back up. You said, okay. I guess reiterate it. You said Mike Zimmer's not going to be your friend. He's going to be your coach. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's he said, his quote is, Mike Zimmer's not going to be your friend. He's going to be your coach, which is going to go towards the point that that's what they need. They don't need someone who's going to be nice, and I don't want to say he's nice, but let him get away with shit. There's not going to be, we're not going to be in game 18 or 19 of the season and we have 5 defensive offsides or false start penalty or encroachment penalties. And I think that's definitely going to be good. And for the old heads of the team, Brandon Cooks came out and said it, and Stephon Gilmore came out and said it, they like that hire because that's how he is. You don't bullshit with the coach. He coaches you, you take the coaching, you go do your job. And I think that's going to be a good thing for the Dallas Cowboys, especially on the defensive side.
Yeah. And I think y'all hit on on all the points here with the hire. Some things to think about, in my opinion, to touch on this last aspect of it is, obviously, I want to touch a little bit on the philosophical aspect of it. He's going to come in here and he's going to coach you hard. And, there's going to be some guys that might check out that we may have to kind of move off of, that say, if you're not going to buy into this new philosophy on defense, then, we might not want you here. And I'm not saying any key players. I'm just saying, there might be some guys. That's something that Darren Woodson pointed out. The last bit of information would be Dan Quinn we've had for the last 4 years, and he went and drafted all of his guys to fit his scheme. Those long, lengthy, cornerbacks and defensive backs and safeties. And then, he went out and got Sam Williams early in the second round, kind of reached for him to get his kind of guy. And now Dan Quinn's out the building. And so what happens to all of these leftover, defensive backs in the scheme? Are they going to be used the same way? Are they going to be believed in the same way? I don't think Mike Zimmer is going to come in and cut them some slack just because they were Dan Quinn's boys. I think he's going to come in and say, I'm here to run things a certain way, and either on board or you're not, and react to that in the future. So I'm interested to see how that plays out with a guy like Mike Zimmer, who might want to go get his own set of guys, whether it be in free agency or in the draft. And there might be some guys moved around for compensatory picks. That's just something I can see in the long run. But I'll be interested to see how it works out. I'm pretty excited about the hire. I don't dislike it. I agree with the medical guys saying that, that this is something that could have been done earlier and we kind of waited around. But long story short, I mean, I'm not opposed to the hire. What I really enjoy about it most is just the philosophical standpoint and his expectation that he sets as coordinator. And the last thing we'll touch on before we wrap things up here is Michael Parsons had Jordan Love on the podcast in Vegas. And there was some controversial opinions about this, but this is him talking about our defensive scheme in the playoffs when Jordan Love faced us at AT&T Stadium. And let's see what we have here, what he's talking about. So a little short clip, it's about 23 seconds.
Man, I think that the key for us going into the game was we needed to run the ball. That was a huge thing. Obviously, we played y'all the year before, and I felt like we ran the ball pretty well. So just going against y'all, I'm not trying to talk, but y'all linebackers, y'all had a DB playing linebacker. I don't know, but like that was our goal, was to be able to run the ball, and it was going to set everything else up. And obviously, man,
yeah. So that's interesting, and this is something that Baldy brought up in his breakdowns. Why do we have a 205-pound linebacker sitting in there, in a goal line set or on third down or in short yardage scenarios? And he's just getting absolutely bullied by people triple his size. And we've talked praise about, and they're pointing out, a guy that we talk praise about all year, and that's Marquise Bell. That's the primary guy, and maybe some Donovan Wilson in there. And we're not at all saying that they're not capable of playing great football, because both of those players played outstanding all year and stepped up. Marquise Bell, I mean, hell, I know I just said it, but to reiterate, we praised him all year. He was one of the highest graded rovers in the league, and this was just Dan Quinn's philosophy. And just the last, just seeing that in that scenario, you always say hindsight's 2020. We did lose some pieces. Yes. We lost Leighton Vander Esch, overshown in the preseason. We don't really have a whole lot of depth left, but at the same time, you've got to do something. You got to make a move in the free agency. You can't go in there thinking that this scheme isn't going to hurt you in the long run. And so, yeah, my personal opinion on this is Jordan Love's exactly right. Y'all linebackers. I like that quote right there is saying, like, we saw the major weakness in your team, and we knew that running the ball against you would get you hurt. And what has been the common theme of us losing playoff games the past 3 years? That's run defense. And go back to like 2018 when we played the Rams. CJ Anderson tore us up. Then back to 2021, Raheem Mostert tore us up. Then in 2022, when McCaffrey was on the 49ers, and we played pretty decent against them. And then this year we get absolutely roasted on the ground by Aaron Jones. It's insanity. It's just insanity. And you're asking these players to play outside of themselves. And it's not their fault. It really isn't. That's a scheme thing, in my opinion. But y'all, I know I covered a lot of it, but do y'all have any short comments on Jordan Love and what he's saying here and kind of the scheme? Just feel free to say today.
For me, mine's pretty short. One, I do think that Marquise Bell is a good player, but Jordan Love is correct. A 205-pound linebacker should not be trying to stop the run defense. And two, I think it's completely corny that Michael Parsons had Jordan Love on his podcast after that dude just spanked his ass and completely embarrassed our football team. And then it's like cool for him to be on the podcast. I think that's ridiculous. So it kind of changes my opinion a little bit on Michael Parsons. I feel like, I'm like, dude, first, what he's been saying after the games, like, yeah, I did my part. And then number two, doing what he's doing now, it's kind of like, man, All right, just
The
shut your ass up and get
independent
out there.
branding.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
whatever. Anyway.
No,
That's what I gotta
my
say.
points are pretty similar to both of y'all, and especially Ryan right there. My first point was, yeah, corny is a good way to put it. I can understand, like, if you like, it's cool to bring players on and whatnot. I think that's super cool, but like, let the wound heal a little bit, brother. Like, it to me, it just looks weird that, like,
Good point.
dude just spanked your ass, and 2 months later, a month later, you have him on your podcast talking about how he whooped your ass. Like, that's to me is just, like, two boxers don't do that. Like, or UFC fighters don't get in there and like, oh, well, you knocked my ass out. Like, how'd you do it? Like, you're not like that. To me, just seemed very weird. Like, very weird behavior.
Jose Aldo isn't asking Conor McGregor to come on his podcast. Go, how did you punch the shit out of me? In the octagon that one time.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
well,
What was your game plan? Well, your jaw's a little weak. It's like, what, dude? Like to me, that's just strange. But yeah, Jordan Love just touched on it. What we all talked about, and it kind of, talking about Dan Quinn's scheme is like his defense was a very opportunistic defense, right? A lot of takeaways and all kinds of stuff like that. But when it got down to the nitty gritty and the hard work up front, like, yeah, we could rush the pass very well. Yeah, we could pick balls off. Yeah, we could chase down receivers and tight ends. But when it got into a third and less than 3 or 4 or an obvious run situation, we got bullied. And so sooner or later, you got to have some mass up front that can, clog a hole or, take up 2 defenders. And, that's I mean, he literally told him, like, oh, yeah, we saw your linebackers were small. We wanted to run the ball because if we got to the second level, we were winning that. And, I think that's definitely going to be something that changes. Hopefully they get Mozzie Smith a lifetime gift card to Chipotle or Golden Corral or whatever, so he can put all that weight back on so he can be the player that we all think he is. I mean, to me, that just shows, like, the scheme is that Dan Quinn built a defense that was good at preying on teams that were behind, right?
Yeah.
He planned every scheme as if our offense would never make a mistake. That way they could play aggressive and jump those routes and do all that. And then when our offense didn't, they couldn't get a stop. Right. And then we had to play the opposite way. And so hopefully Mike Zimmer changes that and all that. But those are just my 2 points on that. I agree with Ryan. I think it's just hella corny and just odd behavior.
I will say this. That might be one of the best summarizations of Dan Quinn's scheme that I've heard. I think that's excellent. That might be the best way to summarize it. Like,
yeah,
no cap.
no kizzy.
No cap. No kizzy, brother. Yeah. No slot, baby.
Yeah.
But okay.
Slime.
Yeah. Slime. But okay, yeah, and obviously in the offseason of season 2, we're going to get into depth with, draft analysis, OTAs, and get our hopes up again and get absolutely shit rocked in January. So we're going to be ready for that. But yeah, this was Super Bowl 58. This is TRAK 35, Mr. Inevitable. And before we wrap up here, I'm going to give you all a little breakdown, kind of a little preview of what to expect maybe in season 2. So this is, like I've mentioned a couple times in this podcast, the end of season 1 of the Rook and the Kid podcast. And we are announcing the official launch date of season 2 soon. So we're going to take, 2 or so weeks off. And we're going to have different release dates for each week. It'll probably be on Sundays. We want to thank our audience for tuning in, to the 35 exciting episodes that we were able to present to you guys every Wednesday. And then some things, we learned along the way. And so we'll be kind of announcing our implementation of upgrades within the next 14 days. And we've got some fun stuff. I've mentioned a couple of it before leading up to this episode, like, in-person recording with the Rook and the Kid. And then some better camera angles, lighting, the whole shebang. So we've got some fun stuff lined up. And we'll announce a lot of those features and upgrades in a video soon. And then stay tuned to our social media, for those news and updates as well. its format and schedule in particular. And then you can find us in between there on Instagram at TRAK.pod, on X at the TRAK Pod, and on TikTok at TRAK.pod. And just FYI, the TikTok has been extremely active as of late with a lot of content material. So that's one of the most popular apps out there. So pay attention to TikTok for TRAK Pod. But yeah, appreciate you guys tagging along. This was a exciting football season. We had a blast covering it for you guys. So I would say the analysts and the medical guy, I really appreciate you guys contributing to this podcast, coming on here, taking times away from your wives and and your jobs and making a sacrifice. So I've enjoyed having you guys on here, and I'm looking forward to a fun 2024. So more to come on that. We're going to collab together and get some things rolling for you guys. So we're going to enjoy these 2 weeks off, play some Call of Duty, Rocket League, get in the gym, get active, eat bad, make some steak, maybe go on a date or two. Who knows? But
drink a beer,
drink a Bud Light,
2 beers
over here. So
3 beers.
Yeah. What?
4 beers. Oh.
What? So, all right. We will see y'all in a couple of weeks in the springtime. And thank you guys. This is the Rook and the Kid podcast. Shatter the script every Wednesday, and see you later.